Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back to another episode of ReConnect with Plant Wisdom. It's me, Tigrilla. Oh, as we near the end of the year, it is the perfect time to reflect and to set our intentions for the future. But hold on, let me talk a little bit more about the reflecting period because I have to say that when I started to plan out this episode, almost all of it is forward facing. And now, as I'm starting to record, I'm coming to the realization that I did not include some of the reflection pieces that are so much a part of this period. So I'm gonna mix that in. I'm gonna mix that in on the fly. I actually plan out a little bit my episodes, but with the end of the year coming up, there's so many different things that I want to talk about, and I'm trying to decide right now as to how much do I give space because it is the end of the year, and how much instead do I plan these things out and put them in there because they're important to do. But it's okay. We have a whole new year coming up. Whole new year together filled with different things. So today I really want to share two powerful tools. I'm going to make it now three powerful tools. Three powerful tools, two of which you've probably never heard of, at least not in this way, unless you've been listening to me for a while, because I talk about them every year. I love them that much. And these ancient practices have not only guided my own journey, but they've also been extremely transformative for many, many, many others. So let's really just kind of get into it. Let's dive into how you can use these tools to close out the year with clarity and to enter in a next phase, a next year with purpose in episode 88, Epagomental Days and Intentions for the New Year. Welcome to ReConnect with Plant Wisdom. I'm your host, Tigrilla, nature-inspired mentor, certified life coach, and the founder of the Naturally Conscious community. For over a decade, I've been known as a world ambassador for plant advocacy, working closely with plants to share their practical wisdom to help you consciously embody the elements of life that nourish your evolution. In this podcast, I delve into ancient and modern knowledge from biology to spirituality about the wondrous ways of plants. Together, we'll explore how ecosystem thinking helps you overcome limiting beliefs, understand the true nature of relationships, and live an authentic, impactful life. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, I want to really deep dive into this. Now, I have to admit, I have a full other podcast that talks about this first item, which is the Epagomenal Days, and really understanding their significance and how to use them. On top of that, I'm actually going to add two more elements. One that comes before, which is the reflective period of the winter season if you are in the Northern Hemisphere. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, I apologize. This episode is for you from the second half on, but I am going to talk a little bit about the kind of preparing yourself for the winter season. I'll make some comments if you're going into summer right now or if you just entered into summer, because I do think that there are some parallels that could be very helpful, especially as we have these other elements that are playing and that are taking into effect. The second one, so Epagomental Days, the winter season and the cycles of nature and how that fits into all of this. And the third one is called the Letter of Intents. And this is a deeper, more integrated alternative to traditional New Year's resolutions. So I'm going to talk about these three principles and then how you can integrate them and how you can bring them into your own life and use them really efficiently, especially as we're heading into the new year, which has a few elements of its own that we're going to talk about. By the end of this episode, I want you to have a clear understanding of what the Epagomental Days are, how to use them, and the same goes for how to best use this seasonal moment and the Letter of Intents as the final phase that takes you into the new year. I also want you to have very practical steps on how it is that you're going to implement these in your own life and inspiration to reflect on for the year, kind of changing a little bit the meaning and the attentions coming in, since we have a tendency to look at some of these things in a very narrow focus rather than more broadly speaking the way that they can be used. And remember that, excuse me, you can tell it's cold and chilly where I am right now. But especially because as we're heading into the year, it's very easy to make a list of like a to-do list or a list of things that you want to accomplish. But when you look at it with a different focus, especially the focus of the letter of intense, it gives you the opportunity to, how do I say, open up to a broader and a different interpretation of what it means to quote unquote accomplish something. So, before we get into the details of all this, I want to share with you one of our eco-conscious business partners, because these are the partners that have really supported us and continue to support our collective evolution. If you're ready to elevate your podcasting game, Zencastr is the way to go. I love how easy it is. You just log in through your browser and start recording high quality sound and video with your guest. No more technical headaches. I've got peace of mind knowing that Zencastr's multi-layered backup ensures my sessions are always secure, even if my connection gets a little wobbly, which often happens living in the mountains. And let's be real, who hasn't worried about how they sound? Zencastr's post-production magic helps me achieve the perfect podcast loudness, and cutting out background noise is just a click away. But what I love most is that Zencastr is an all-in-one platform. No more juggling multiple tools and services. With Zencastr, I create, produce, and distribute my podcast to Spotify and Apple and other major platforms, all in one place. So join me to make your podcasting journey effortless and enjoyable. Go to tigrillagardenia.com/Zencastr to get my coupon code NCC Sprout, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same experience as I do for all of my podcasting needs, and it's time to share your story. Okay, so let's get into the first piece. Actually, I'm going to change the order a little bit. I had originally thought I was going to start with the Epagomental Days, but now that I've thought about the seasonal cycle piece, I want to add that first, since I think when you're putting all these pieces together, that's going to be a very important one. Now, the fall, again, if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, give me a sec, I'll get there. But let's talk about the Northern Hemisphere for a second. In the fall, you have a period of time that is all about collecting in the nourishment. So hopefully in this fall season, you took the time to bring in whatever it was that was working, to kind of recall the events of the years, the tools, the feelings, the sensations, the moments, whatever it is that you wanted to look at. Pull in all of that nourishment, everything that made you feel good, everything that made you feel like you were growing, everything that pushed you into next steps. So all of these different elements, you pulled them into yourself. And then now that the winter has begun, it is the time to start to process them. Now, I've been talking in the last few episodes about different ways of processing. Processing does not just mean sitting there and journaling, sitting there and like writing things out. It can be. And if you feel called to do it, do it. Most definitely do it. But also recognize that even time with family and contemplation, even immersing yourself into events and experiences is a form of processing. And the winter months can be very reflective time, and also a very quiet time internally speaking. You don't have to have the hustle and bustle in order to be able to process. Processing is also a form of alchemical distillation in our body, right? The idea of allowing things to run their course and have their experiences. You're probably going to purge, you're going to cry, you're going to let things go, you might use some magical tools to, for example, burn certain things that need to be let go of. But don't focus so much on what tools to use as much as the idea of setting the mindset and allowing yourself to be in a period of reflection. It's naturally a slower period. I know it sounds counterintuitive if we have big families, because you think, oh my gosh, there's so much going on. But in some ways, all of that that's going on is very different, and it can be very externally focused. So finding that right balance and the opportunity for you to also bring things into yourself and having that period of reflection is really important. In other words, the winter season starts, from the middle of December, and it goes all the way to the middle of March. So you're just beginning to process through and feel things. So even though I'm about to give you two tools that are in the December to January timeframe in the way that they get used, please recognize that because all of this period is winter, and you're trying to prepare yourself for a good spring, you really want to kind of give yourself the opportunity to reflect throughout this entire period. In other words, even with the tools that I'm giving you, don't feel constrained to, kind of like a New Year's resolution says, oh, you have to write that New Year's resolution before the new year. No. Yes, you can, but you also always have the right to update it, to reflect on it, to make changes, to refine, to refresh based on what comes out during the reflective period of the season. In other words, use this season, allow this season to use you in some ways. Everything, what's happening with, for example, trees that are deciduous is that they're going dormant externally to a certain extent. Internally, they're quieting down, but there's still processes that are running there. It's not like everything just shuts down and the tree is dead. The tree is very much alive. Even animals that go into hibernation are very much alive. There's breathing functions, there's basic functions, and therefore there's dreaming functions. There's functions that are not externally focused. And that's really what you want to do. Allow your external focus to be friends and family and whatever you feel called to do, but also give time for that internal focus, that focus of being in presence, as we've talked about recently, with yourself, and of honoring this change of the season. It gets darker earlier. You're spending more time probably in some kind of chilly, even if it's not cold, but it's chillier from whatever the norm is. You're experiencing the opportunity that your body gives you to kind of move into and shift into another gear. So this is an extremely important tool, and don't discount it. Really use it, and you'll see that it will give you so much more when you allow yourself that space for that reflection, that processing, that integration, and then the changing and the reflecting on what has changed within you. After that, while you're in that, in reality, because you're in that, I'm going to give you another really important, very powerful tool, which is the Epagomenal Days. Now, you may have heard me talk about this. Episode 38, I believe, of the podcast is all about the Epagomenal Days. Plus, I have a blog post on my website, which you can search for and look at. It's a few years ago, but that gives the entire story of the Epagomenal Days. But if you're new around here, I'm going to give you sort of a very brief overview, and then we're going to get into why these are so important. Now, in Egyptian mythology, the Epagomenal Days are kind of these days out of time. So if you want to go back to like ancient history or mythology, depending on the way that you want to look at this, there was a time when the sun god Ra forbade Nut from, which was the sky goddess, from bearing any children any day of the year. Okay, so Nut wants to have these children. So what does she decide? She goes and she has a conversation with Tot, and she's like, "Hey, how can I do this?" And Tot thinks about it for a while, and he's like, "Oh well, I know that Khonsu has a bit of a gambling problem. So why don't you go over to look at Khonsu, to go talk to Khonsu, who happens to be the god of moonlight, and he's really the only rival to Ra's sunlight. So if you kind of make a bet with him that every time that he loses in the game of drafts that you're going to play with him, he gives you a little bit of his moonlight." So what does Newt do? She goes and she sits down with Khonsu, and she's like, "Hey, Khonsu, how about some drafts?" Which is kind of like checkers. "How about if we play? And are you a betting man? Can we bet on this?" So what do? They start this game, and Kansu actually wasn't very good player. Actually, doesn't it turn out that anybody with a gambling problem usually isn't a very good player? I think that's why they lose so much money. If you were a gambling person and you won a lot, we would just think you were a champion of something. Anyways, that's another story altogether. So what happened was that every time that he lost, he gave her a little bit of moonlight. And in the end, she ended up with 5 days of moonlight. These are not days the way that Ra was talking about. So in those moon days, moon days, I guess that's the best way of saying it. In those moon days, Nut was able to give birth to her children: Osiris, Horus the Elder, Set, Ibis, and Nephthys. These 5 days are then considered days out of time. Specifically, there are days in which many, many, many divinities were actually born. On the calendar, it's somewhere around the days after Christmas and the beginning of New Year's. So you have these days. We have Jesus and Buddha and Dionysus and all kinds of other gods that were born around the same time. So why are these days important? Well, from a magical perspective, this mythology sort of gives us this cover that these days, which are really more like nights, right? Because it's moonlight, right? So there are nights that are protected from the forces that might hold you back. In the case of Nut, it was Ra who was trying to hold her back from realizing the birth of her children. But for any of us, we have different elements, different energies that might try to hold us back in different ways. Some of them come from within, some of them come from without. But in this period, this is a period where the days are protected specifically from any kind of force that can hold you back from giving birth from giving birth. Now extend the giving birth away from just childbirth, but more into the birth of anything you're creating. Right? Anytime you are creating something, whatever that might be, it might be a transformation in yourself, it might be a project, it might be a service, it might be a product. It's all about birthing a new creation. So during these Epagomenal days, the Egyptians truly believed that time stood still, and therefore you were under a protective bubble of this moonlight that helped you be able to step out of the rules of existence, right? To help you move out of you were basically lurking in the shadows in a positive way. One of the few times when you're actually working with the shadows in a way that it feels really, really possible. So when you know these days, there's a protection that gets put over you that allows you to operate in these days with movement. And so these can be a wonderful day for you to birth new projects. Now, let me be really clear, especially because I was just talking about how winter is about reflection. And birthing projects tends to feel like I need to make something come true. No, let me clarify that from the very beginning, not very piece. Let me clarify that from the very beginning. When I say birth a project and what they could be good for, or birth a creation, it could even be the idea. In other words, allowing something or taking something that's been rattling around in your mind and giving it a shape or a form, an initial shape or form, or taking the next step on something that you've been wanting to work on for a long period of time. In other words, what these days do is anchor in an energy of movement, anchor in an energy. They work on covering up what might be the most difficult pieces. So this is a great period of time and for you to work on anything that you've been stuck on or something that maybe you've started and stopped and you want to just give it a little boost. That doesn't mean you might not stop for a period of time while you finish your reflection or you modify it, change it, think about it more or anything. But you're anchoring in the energy of giving this thing life, of putting in, again, of childbirth, right? You don't have a child and the child is automatically an adult. They are born as a baby, as a baby that's pretty much helpless in the first years of their lives. Therefore, think about it in those terms. The other piece that I'm going to add is that here in Damanhur, which we work a lot with the Epagomenal Days, is that we have been for many, many years working with this energy to elongate it. So where it starts as 5 days, the more that we create in this energy, the more that we use the Epagomenal Days, the more that we stretch them out and make them longer. So here in Damanhur, the Epagomental Days are extremely important and something that we use to start and kick off and birth many different projects, because by doing that, we solidify this energy of protection. It's almost like you can think of it as a cupola around you or a bubble, a sphere that's protecting you from these forces that letting you operate without being seen. And then when you work on this, the more you do it, you reinforce that protective shell. You reinforce your ability to create without having anything else external to you interfere, and even sometimes internal to you. So the more you exercise this muscle on a single project or on a number of projects, in the sense of birthing it, giving it a life, giving it a shape. It doesn't mean that that has to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be complete. It has to have a shape enough to be recognized, to feel like it can survive with your help going forward outside of the wound of your mind and of your own energy. And then you're reinforcing and you can elongate those days. Here in Damanhur, we have been able to keep these days going at times all the way until the beginning of February. Most of the time, somewhere around mid to end of January, the Epagomenal days start to wane away. But we still have that protection up in those moments. And so the more we create, the more they get to use. And this is, for me, become a moment of just a burst of energy, even though I want to try to contextualize this in the right way, because I want you to understand the difference and yet the flow between a time of reflection, which is what the winter gives you, and at the same time, a birthing of something new. The reflection allows me to go deeper into the contemplation of what is really important. And we're going to talk about that more with the second tool that I'm going to give you. What's important is not the initial, usually superficial level. So the reflection is perfectly married to the Epagomenal days, because when I am usually working on a project externally or during the normal time of the year, I feel the need to get it done, to get it out there, to make it real, to show others. And therefore, I don't go far enough in my exploration and in my contemplation, but also in gathering up in data. I don't do my analysis phase very richly. I tend to do it superficially. And we see this all the time if you've worked in certain kinds of teams, or if you've worked on projects where people want to see the output, so they want to see it done. The marrying together of the winter season with the Epagomenal days allows you to really give this space, a spaciousness and a richness, to empty out all the fears of let's get it done fast, or I have to show others that I'm working on this, and instead sit in that spaciousness to allow everything that comes to you to come also out of you and to be born. If instead you're in the southern hemisphere and you're in the middle of summer, then you can just imagine that this boost of energy, this protection, allows you to manifest more. It allows you to take whatever it is that you're working on that you've probably planned during the winter months, and during the fall you've called it in, and then in the spring you started it up, and by the summer it's supposed to be flowering, and now you can really give extra nourishment to what is coming up for you. You can be better at choosing which of the many things that are flowering in this moment or sprouting in this moment, and be able to more consciously choose which elements you want, because the Epagomenal days protect you from any kind of force that sort of pushes you to be superficial, to make a quick decision. In other words, you can still use this energy, just focusing it more on the latter phases of a project, where during the winter months you want to focus that energy on the early phases of a project, the analysis phase, the phase that, to be honest, we normally skip. Most of the time, most of us will skip all of the analysis, all of the gathering of data, all of the like being in it and being present in whatever it is that's coming up, because we think we're supposed to produce. And so the Epagomenal days combined with winter gives us the ability to do that, where the Epagomenal days combined with summer helps us be better at choosing from what is sprouting up which things we want to continue to nourish and in what direction we want to continue nourishing them in. What are the next phases, the regeneration phases, the sustainability phases? It adds a whole layer of protection around those very delicate periods, which is the continuity, the continuation, the evolution to the next level. So there are two different phases, but they're combined with the same boost of energy and this protective force that comes from these Epagomenal days that allows you to basically explore the vulnerabilities more carefully. That's probably the best way of saying it. No matter what phase you are, no matter what season you're living in, within the Epagomenal days, being inside of this space, safe space, you can explore vulnerabilities, you can explore critical points, you can explore issues more readily because that cupola, that protective bubble is going to hold the space for you. Hopefully that was clear. And if you have any questions on it, please feel free, to contact me. You can, of course, listen to that episode of the podcast. I believe it's episode 38. You can go read the article where I give a nice description of it, and then feel free to just contact me and we can have a discussion, especially about how you want to use these days. I actually have a special going on right now where I'm doing a 1-month intensive. And in that 1-month intensive, we could work on this because it's the perfect period to start this work. The Epagomenal days are just starting out. So with this new energy coming in, and who knows how long it will last, but the more that you work with it, the more you use it, the more you enter into the flow of it, then the more time you have in order to evaluate these critical points, to look at these vulnerabilities, to explore alternative points of view that you might not give yourself a chance to do, to look at what the possible risk factors are in a more detailed. And this again works the same no matter whether you're at the very beginning and you're birthing the existing project, or whether you're at the latter stages, like in the summer, where what you're doing is birthing its continuation, you're birthing its next phase, you're birthing its regeneration or sustainability. So you can use it in any point, tapping into that energy. The second tool I really want to talk to you about is called the letter of intents. Now, the letter of intents is a tool that we use here at Dominher for, well, I don't even remember when it was originally introduced. I know that from the time that I've been living here, it's been used. It's had moments where we don't talk about it as much, but it's always been something that is a big element for us to use. And the letter of intents is a tool that's available to anyone. It's a tool that you can think of it as a personal reference point for reflecting on yourself and on your overall path. It marks a rhythm, a collective alignment toward common goals. And a greater awareness to the importance of your function in the big picture, right? You have this big picture that is your life purpose, your soul mission, the community you're involved with, your family dynamics. All of these make up pictures that come into the big picture of your life. And the letter of intentions is the opportunity for you to take a moment and think about and choose consciously how you want to flow inside of this. I've been telling my students, because again, it's a Dominhurian tool, so we had just been working on it last month, and I was telling my students that if you think about the fact, in our case, when we're talking about Dominher, the sages of Dominher put out a 50-page letter of intentions, which was the spiritual direction for Dominher. And I say that this is the banks of our river, right? If you think about it, these are the banks of the river in which we're all flowing inside. And then you have all the different organisms and groups and projects that are within Dominher. And each one of these also writes a letter of intents. What are the intentions that they have in the next year? It's an annual tool, by the way. It normally starts around the beginning of the Dominhurian year, which is September, and you kind of look at it and reflect, and you verify it by the end of the calendar year, which is around the time that we're doing now. And so you have the direction that the sages have been given for the direction of Dominher, and so this is our riverbank, and then you have all these different elements that are being put in by the different organisms and groups and individuals in Damanhur, and you read the letters that all correspond to you in some way, and then you write your letter, as in, how do I want to flow with all of this? Who do I need to become in order to flow with all of this? So the letter of intention is, or the letter of intents is, a tool that is not just a to-do list. So your traditional New Year's resolution is, I'm gonna, I don't know, stop eating pie every day. Pie. Sorry, we don't have pie in Italy, so pie. I'm going to eat pie, and I'm going to stop eating pie, and I'm going to start working out. I'm going to go do this. The letter of intents is different in that it's more about, who do you need to become, and what do you need, how do you want to interact in order for you to accomplish, achieve, manifest, create within the greater picture of Damanhur, in our case, or of your life. So you want to sit down when you go to write your letter of intents, and you want to think about all the different groups you are a part of, all the different groups that make up your life. And that, it means everything, right? Like, your work group, your family dynamics, your social circles, and the different, any kind of charities you're a part of, any kind of professional organizations you feel really called to, any kinds of talents, passions that you follow up on. You want to think about the intentions all of these different groups have. And then ask yourself, okay, within these, who do I need to be, become, learn, achieve, create? And then you want to look at all of that and say, okay, in order for me to do that, who do I need to become as an individual that is operating in this interactive, interrelated ecosystem that I've created? So you're really looking at it more from an ecosystem perspective. I am part of the water that's flowing in this river. And in this river is made up of all these different elements, right? And then how do I want to interact with all of these elements? So the group dynamics and the collective goals become important, because in order to feel happy, in order to feel fulfilled, in order to feel successful in these, have different aspects of me that I want to give space to. And that is what I want to put into my letter of intent. So it's not just a to-do list. It's really about, what values do I want to embody? What feelings within me do I need to experience? How do I want my interactions to be over here? And how do I want them to be over there? And who do I need to become as a whole, so that these two interactions between these different organizations and myself feel all part of the same person? So it's much broader looking than New Year's resolutions. And when it's done inside of the Epagomenal Days, you have that safe space to really explore, do I want to put energy into this? What is the criticality, or what is the vulnerability of doing this? And for you to look at them with much more honest view, and for you to step into them much more, what's the right, this is those moments where the words just, it's all in here, it's all in my emotions. Hence, if you're watching the video, you can see the way I'm squirming around and moving, because it's all here. It's just hard for me to put it into words and to give it, but you can just imagine it, right? So whether you're in the winter or in the summer for your seasonality, right? In one, you're going to be super reflective, and in the other, you're going to be very more about thinking about the next generation, the next step, because you're going to be evaluating what's coming up. In one, you're evaluating what you want to plant, and the other one, you're evaluating what's coming up from what you have planted. So they're both wonderful times. My letter of intents gives me the opportunity to reflect on all of this, on my entire ecosystem around me, and to put this into a set of intentions that are protected, because we're inside the days out of time. And so personally, what I do when I'm writing my letter of intents, especially my Damanhurian letter of intents first, and then around this time of year, I usually revise my sort of Damanhurian one because it includes, of course, me, because I'm a Damanhurian and it's part of it. But of course, it has all these elements that are connected. I then take it into this period and I broaden it and I expand it and I look at it more holistically and interrelated. In other words, I think of it a lot as an ecosystem, and how do these parts of me all interrelate and connect. And so I tend to even just literally put it out like piece by piece. So here I am, and I'm writing about who I want to become on the social side of Dom and Her, and what I want to feel, and what do I want to experience, and who do I want to be. And then here on the more spiritual initiatic path, and here on my more inner reflections, and here on my ability to change and be dynamic, which are kind of the four main pillars of Dom and Hurian life. How do I want to interact with the big mission of Dom and Her, right? The whole, what we call the Project Vaine, and what we're here to do to help reawaken the divine spark in every single human being. How do I want to interact with that? Who do I want to be in that? I go through my way as a knight. Who do I am? Who am I as a knight? What do I want to accomplish as a knight? What do I want to feel? And what do I want to learn? Are there skills that I want to learn? But also, are there types and ways that I need to express myself? How do I embody my values as a knight? I go through each section, and then I go through my life and my business and my personal life, and then my different passions, languages, and now all of my artistic pieces, and how do I want to connect to the art world and to the music world, which are such big pieces of who I am, and all these different aspects. And I look at this looking at the different intentions around me. What is happening in, how are each one of these different groupings that I mentioned, how are they moving forward, and how do I move forward with them? What I like about this technique is that it keeps everything fresh. It keeps everything connected. You don't get stuck into old kind of traditions, or maybe even old ways of being that maybe an organization or a grouping is changing, because by writing the letter of intents, literally looking at what's happening now and where they want to go. Remember, I told you in Dom and Her, we start with the sages of Dom and Her. They're the spiritual direction. They're looking out the next 5, 10, 20 years for Dom and Her. So I'm forward focused. And I really like that, because I think sometimes when we create New Year's resolutions, we tend to do it with my sort of failures of the year. And so I get stuck into an old mentality, rather than, because I'm in the Epagomenal days and I am protected. If I do this in this period of time, I can really look at myself in a much more holistic and more complete way. But I'm also, because I'm working on a letter of intents that is supposed to follow the flow of all these different parts that I'm a part of, all these different parts, all these different groupings that I'm a part of, that I'm flowing forward. It's very forward focused. It's not based on who I've been or what I've accomplished or what I failed at. It's very much based on, who do I want to become? What do I want to feel? And from there, what do I want to accomplish, manifest, or create from that? So it just shifts the focus. And I think that that's really beautiful to use for. These two tools, actually three, if you think about the seasons, really work together to create a comprehensive approach to ending the year and setting your direction in a much deeper and holistic way. And it gives you space and time, because remember, the Epagomenal days sort of stretch into the beginning of the new year, for you to make refinements. For you, it is a stake in the ground. It's like you're setting an intention, but it's always intended to be a living document that you constantly modify and adjust and direct in, or as things changing. So this is the type of thing I've seen it used so much, especially here in Dom and Her, because we have many collective goals. I love that we oftentimes announce when we reach new goals. And well, I'm not going to get into this, but there's a whole thing of like time that we've gained and vital units of energy and all kinds of other things that we are able to obtain from accomplishing our goals. And so I love that I've been able to see how all of these tools work together and the things we have been able to accomplish. I have done so many things in the January period that I never thought I would be doing, thanks to the energy of the Epagomental Days. I mean, we have built halls in the temple. We have completed like household projects that we didn't think we would even have the time, money, or energy to be able to do. We have had these just incredible moments of togetherness thanks to the Epagomental Days and the intentions that were set when we did the letter of intentions. So it's also something for you to think about of how do you celebrate the things that you work on? How do you give yourself a celebration or give or celebrate as a group every single collective step, every step that you are birthing and every piece that you put in? It's really important for you to recognize that this isn't about do. This is about be, this is about feel, and this is about manifest individually, but also almost more importantly in the collective. And yeah, there's just this is why I talk about this every single year. Like I said, you can go back through my stuff and you will see that every year I am talking about these days because there is just so much richness to them. And every year I also discover a whole new layer of them. I first started talking about these publicly when I was in Egypt because I was in Egypt and therefore I was able to sort of see the Egyptian calendar. And I had a conversation with an Egyptologist that walked me through the Epagomental Days from their perspective. And then I was able to take that and look at it with what Damanhur. And then I went out and did research on all these others. And I understood that these days have always been seen as special days across many, many different philosophies. And that just added to the level of energy. And so when I tapped into that pipe, then, like I said, I feel this burst of energy whenever I am working in the Epagomental Days. I can feel it in my body, and therefore it naturally comes to me to want to get all this type of stuff done. So as we bring this year to a close, the Epagomental Days, the letter of intents, and the seasonal flow that is so important really offer a unique opportunity and a powerful way for you to reflect on your journey and set meaningful intentions for the future year. By integrating these processes, you can create a more intentional, but more than anything, fulfilling and aligned path forward. It's a tool that lets you set steps thinking about the overall ecosystem you want to live in. Who do you want to be? What do you want to feel? And what do you want to manifest, create, or accomplish within that being and that feeling? And this is really the key to not just getting things done, because, we've talked about productivity before as well, but more enjoying and feeling like you're on the path of your life purpose, letting yourself and your soul help guide you towards the steps that you're taking. And remember, I'm always here to support you on this journey and help you achieve all of these things. So all you have to do is reach out. So before we close up, I want to take a moment to really think about how you can apply these tools in your own life. And I'm curious, have you ever used the Epagomental Days or any other reflective process and practice to close out your year? If not, how do you think that this could benefit you? Like, what would be different if you were to work with the Epagomental energy? If you were to call in these days? If you were to probably also call in whatever your favorite divinity is. Remember, many of them were born in this period. They're in a high. They're celebrating their birthdays. They want to share. Everybody wants to party around their birthday. Okay, not everybody. Many people want to party about their birthday. And also, what are some of the personal or collective intentions you want to set for the next year? I get so curious. I'm curious. What do you want to set? Like, how can incorporating the letter of intents change the way you approach all of your goals and your relationships? Very different from a kind of New Year's resolution that almost always I don't know about you, but New Year's resolutions to me just feel like you're writing the list of the things you're going to fail at. That's the way. I know that's probably not fair, and I'm sure that there's other people out there that find that the New Year's resolutions are useful, but for me, I have to say, it's almost like writing a failure list. It's like, okay, I'm not going to use this. This doesn't work for me. So I'm excited to hear all about your thoughts and your experiences. So feel free to reach out and share your journey. And remember, these practices are just one of the many, many ways I can help you achieve a deeper connection with yourself and the world around you. So if you're curious, all you want is to reach out and let me know, and I'm happy to share with you. I'd love to just, hear how you're planning your year ahead and any insights that you've gained. I truly appreciate the feedback, the perspectives. It helps me also broaden the way that I think about things. And it's extremely enriching for our entire community, everyone that is connected. So if this episode sparked something within you, I hope that you will join the Naturally Conscious community, which is the premier, if not, most likely the only community for nurturing these types of human plant relationships and really kind of divine. I know I don't talk about it enough, but I feel kind of this need to focus the podcast on the plant pieces, but as you can already tell by the things that I've been talking about, that divine, spiritual, esoteric piece is always just there. And I'm always curious as to whether you want me to bring it out a little more or if you would prefer me to stay on the more sciencey side. So your feedback is extremely important. That's why I love it when you like and you comment and you subscribe, and especially when you share, because not only does that help me understand what's important to you and what you think others should know about, but also it helps others discover this podcast and join this community, this conversation. Remember, not everybody has an enriching community. A lot of people are out there seeking. They're stuck on social networks without really knowing where to go. They're feeling kind of the pressure of the external social media world that doesn't necessarily promote an intimate reflection. Unfortunately, way too many trolls out there. So that's the reason why the Naturally Conscious community exists. I wanted to create a safe space where we could talk about these things in an environment where it was just among us sprouts, where we could really get into the nitty gritty details. And in every one of our weekly events and our different activities that we do are all about creating that safe bubble, kind of like our own little Epagomenal Days. So if you need support on your own evolutive journey, join the Naturally Conscious community. But also, I've got an amazing, amazing, amazing end of this year promotion, which is that 1 month intensive coaching. And so if you're interested in starting off the new year with all the energy of the Epagomenal Days that offer you, then let's connect. Let's see how I can help you, because, that's what I'm here for. And everything you need is in the show notes. So that's it. That's it for this episode. That's it for this year. I will not be putting out an episode during the actual new year. So this is your last episode of the year. I hope you have a wonderful 2024 celebration. I hope your Epagomental Days are filled with so much energy and protection and safeness and exploration. And I hope your letter of intents beautifully states everything that you want to be, everything that you want to feel and experience, and everything that you want to accomplish in the coming year. Remember, resist the urge to hold back your emerging green brilliance. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of ReConnect with Plant Wisdom. To continue these conversations, join us in the Naturally Conscious community, your premier online ecosystem for plant reawakening and accelerated evolution and co-creation with other kin. Here, you'll find expansive discussions, interactive courses, live events, and supportive group programs like the Plant Wisdom Book Club and the Sprouts Writing and Creativity Group. Connect with like-minded individuals collaborating with plants to integrate these insights into life. Intro and outro music by Steve Shuley and Poinsettia from The Singing Life of Plants. That's it for me, Tigrilla, and my plant collaborators. Until next time, remember, resist the urge to hold back your emerging green brilliance. I'm out. Bye.